Today's topic can get a bit controversial because it involves insiders, outsiders. I will first introduce Katharina. Katharina Kakar is of German origin. She lives in Banauli. She's an anthropologist and she's interested in various cultures and people. She and her husband, the late Dr. Sudhir Kakar, moved to Goa over 2 decades ago. At that time, Goa was a very different place. Her book, Moving to Goa, is easily, and I'm quoting this, the best single-volume introduction to Goa available today. It is very well researched. This was the review in the Mint. After reading her book, I realized that I didn't know so much about the land of my ancestors. As an aside, those of you who are Ms. Goikar, would you mind just putting your hands up, please?
We're all outsiders, it seems.
And that's the whole point of this discussion today. So Katrina has covered the experience of buying and setting up a house in a village, the foods of the locals, their beliefs, festivals, both Catholic and Hindu, the hippies, of whom we know so little, though they were the ones who, in a way, put Goa on the world map. Then we come to the new settlers, mixed with the old history, the trade and business that made Goa wealthy and cosmopolitan, the Portuguese era, and much more. Now we all talk about migrants, as we can see, almost 99% here are migrants. But we know nothing about how the Goans live, and they quite often don't know how the migrants live. For example, anyone here knows any details about how the waiters who serve in the shacks, the cooks, any idea how they live?
I know that they mostly Bengalis.
Doesn't matter from where. They could be from Karnataka, they could be from Kashmir. We'll tell you about that. So Katrina is a cultural bridge builder. Besides her writing work and the academic work, she used to run an NGO called the Tara Trust, which she ran for 10 years. And it worked in more than 30 institutions, such as Anganwadis, orphanages, and homes for children with disabilities. Welcome.
Thank you, Sheela, for your kind introduction, and thank you, MOG, for giving us this opportunity to have a conversation with all of you. So this should not really be a book reading. I'm not intending to read, but rather a discussion where I'm sure Sheela as well is very interested in your opinions and to figure out or go into a direction of how can we bridge the different communities in Goa? As Sheela kind of just mentioned, we are all living in very segregated pockets, so to speak. One example is the community that visits MOG for the Sunday mornings. We are all more or less from the same backgrounds. So instead of preaching to the choir that all of us agree on topics, it would be interesting to figure out what can be done to knit the communities together. That would be my interest also to hear from you. So it's an open discussion from the very beginning, and I think Sheela had some questions prepared.
So I have 5 questions, which I will ask her. You're most welcome to interrupt us. Put your hands up, and you can ask a counter question or maybe give an answer in 1 or 2 sentences, because most of you may not have read the book. You can read it later. However, I would like to restrict opinions and longer sentences to the last 15 minutes so that the talk goes smoothly. So my first question to you. Mining has brought a lot of money to Goa. It's made Goa one of the richest states in India. Now, as compared to mining, do you think tourism has brought in more money and less destruction? And we could use politicians here.
I think one has to look first at the situation like many years back. Mining started at the end of the Portuguese era and then continued. At that time, ecological questions were not asked. I mean, there was no way that the destruction that we are seeing today was questioned. So it was a financial backbone in that time. It still is one of the major sources of income. I think about 18% of the GDP is from mining. But I think you can't really compare the destruction or the impact of tourism and mining. For one, mining always leaves destruction. There's no way that we can politically interfere. Not that interference is happening to have a better tourism these days, but it's possible. It's possible to build sustainable tourism and so on. It's not possible to build sustainable mining. It has to stop, and it won't, because 10% of the iron ore of all India is found in India. So it needs the people to restrict it, to stop it. Tourism as a backbone, as you said, the hippies put Goa on the world map, so tourism has been here very early, and as far as I know, it's about 30% of the Goan population that depend on it in many ways, whether it's musicians in the hospitality area, whether it's taxi drivers or homestays and so on. So more or less every family has, someone somewhere working in the hospitality or tourism area. So you don't bite the hand that feeds you. Now, how destructive is tourism? It is, of course. We see the littered beaches, we see water problems, garbage problems. But I think how we need to kind of approach it is awareness building, and there are lots of people who do that already by looking at the different groups who are the tourists and who are also constructing, whether it is the luxury hotels, whether it is huge projects that are going on that are destroying the infrastructure. So I think we need to look at these different groups and then find out how can we build a more sustainable tourism. To get tourism out of Goa is impossible. It's the base, it's the foundation of livelihood, apart from agriculture and mining.
Regarding mining, considering that all of us are using mobile phones, cars, fridges, air conditioners, we do need the ores that are mined. We can't all say that not in my backyard. So even the mining, we can't really wish away, can we?
Well, let's kind of open it up. I mean, for example, mining, as I said earlier, a lot of people depended, I think about 60,000 people lived from mining, our families. It's a huge amount of people in the hinterlands where there were much less opportunities to earn a living than in the coastal belt. However, things are shifting, and I find that interesting to observe. There has been an influx now on what is called kind of e-auctioning of mines. Mining leases are not longer 20 years, they're 50 years. Earlier it was the villagers who were employed to do all kinds of jobs, from drivers to controlling the mining and so on. Now the people are brought into the state. And I think that's an interesting point for activism, because now you can bite the hand that doesn't feed you any longer. There's a tremendous anger about the destruction of the agricultural surroundings, and people have started to complain, to file lawsuits, and it's not just NGOs, it's now the people as well. I think that's an interesting point to pick up and reactivate the movement. And there, for me, the question comes: how can we unite the different groups within Goa? Only if we have that kind of networking and unite, we will actually be able to have change. And that is, for me, the major question right now.
During the lockdown, the unorganized sector, middle class sector, somehow connected very well through their mobile phones, and they did a pretty good job with the reverse migration. which happened due to the lockdown. So it is possible for people to connect. I don't see why not.
I think it's a little bit more complex. We have all around the world the phenomena of algorithms, let me call it that way. You Google a certain interest, let's say mining in Goa, yeah, and more YouTubes in the same direction show up. So you get isolated information, and that's true for the other side as well. That's one thing. The other thing is in the villages. Do we really talk to the people? Do we know what the villagers' pains are? For example, one guy in my village, he tries to attend certain issues that are important for the village, but says rightfully, I have my children to feed. I can go once for a protest or sit on the road and be there, but not like every day of the week. So a lot of these villagers have a lot of knowledge of what's going on in Goa. They are very aware of the projects. We just don't know because we don't talk to them. We don't know about the local activists. We know about the educated local activists. But do we know about the normal man, in our backyard who's active? So I think this is the starting point, and then we have to think, what can we offer? What can we offer to help the villagers to achieve certain things? For example, there might be people who are in the techno business, invent some apps. Maybe young people already do that. For example, an app that is connected to certain institutions where one can send pictures if the trolleys come too far in to catch fish, or if there's someone dumping construction garbage into a field. So these kind of things, what can we offer to connect, our different knowledges? What do we know about the villagers' knowledge of plants, of agriculture, and so on? So that is, I think, where we need to start.
Okay, question number 2. So here, as she said, we're preaching to the converted. Most of us would know what kind of damage is happening in Goa. Now, how do we involve builders, real estate agents, captains of polluting industries? How do we involve them?
Yeah, that's the big question. If you can't get to them, get to their children. So, and I say that from my own experience. When I was 7 years old in my little hometown, there was an activist group, and they started garbage collections, unheard of at that time in Germany. And they made it in a way, they did it in a way that it was fun. We kids all wanted to be there because we met our friends, we got like sweets, there was a huge bunch of kids and also grown-ups, and it was me later on when my father kind of rolled down his window and threw garbage out of the window who screamed at him and educated him. So if we will not be able to get to the builders. Greed and money is all that matters. If you reach online, why is Goa so popular suddenly as an investment target? It is only about capital. How do they call it?
Investment.
No, there's a word. I can't. It's like the word itself is insane, and also what you gain through rents. So Goa is a target. Goa is not seen as a grown culture. It's not, of course, seen for its nature, but people do not realize, if they want to buy the 8 crore villa with a rice field view, what had been there before the villa was built, and what it means to the villagers outside. Less water, less parking because everyone has their own swimming pool, and so on and so forth. So we will not be able to get to those who want to pocket the money, but maybe through activities in schools, maybe through activism even in Delhi schools, because more than 50% of the buyers are coming from Delhi. More than 71% or 78%, I forgot the exact number, right now of the elite who has the money wants to buy into Goa the next year. 71%. So there are more than 8 huge building companies from Delhi itself, who are investing in Goa now, who've already bought their land. So it's impossible to kind of fight this fight, and yet I think it is possible. And I'm a great optimist. I always see the glass half full, never half empty. And I think we also get the wrong narrative. You know, there's always the negative narrative of all things that went wrong. But there have been studies, and I don't know who has heard about the 3.5 rule. Have you heard about that? Okay, let me just summarize. It was a huge surprise for all the kind of scientists who have been involved in it. But it was found out that it needs only 3.5 of active people, engaged people, to politically change situations. And we can talk about revolutions or small changes. For me, the Mollem movement in Goa has been one of these examples. It's astonishing what the activists have done. And they did exactly that. They had, of course, the backbone of many people who might not have been active in the movement. I have not been active in the movement, but observed it. But they had the ability to communicate, a tremendous, diverse activities, from artists being involved, from webinars that were held, from information being disseminated. So they reached out not only to many groups, but were also able to communicate it. This is the 3.5% that you need to have change. Of course, there's also frustration. I've talked to some of my younger friends here in Goa who say they're just wearing us out. They're just waiting, as it's often happening, till everyone is, you know, so exhausted, and then the game starts again. There's truth to it, but then I think there's already so much that has happened. It will be much more difficult now to simply build that two-lane railroad track, or the highway, or the electricity lines through the wildlife center park. So I think, you know, it has an impact, even if we might not win the whole battle. And this 3.5 rule in Goa would mean probably, like, there are 1.5 million people, maybe 60, 70,000 people actively engaged. We can only do that if we have the villagers on board. It cannot happen through NGOs who all work independently, which is the second problem. There's not enough communication between groups. So if that kind of consciousness is there, and if in our history books there's more about all these revolutions, that small and big, that were successful, because what they also found out in this 3.5 percentage rule is that non-violent movements are much more successful than violent movements. 52% of movements that are non-violent and fulfill that 3.5 rule succeeded. That's a huge. That's a huge number. And in these studies, they also show, I mean, larger revolutions, like the Bloodless Rose Revolution. Where was it? Czechoslovakia. So, I mean, you can Google these things, whether it's the fall of the wall in Berlin. And in this country, of course, Gandhi, the Gandhian movement, or the Chipko movements are the most, the largest ones. But there's so many movements that have achieved things through non-violent protests. So I think we can turn things around in Goa. I do believe it. We cannot turn them back in what it was, but we can scare the people in power. And it starts already, like the next village where I live, in Kamona, there's a very active village group that always has been. They are onto that, you know, ex-cricketer right now, not only to stop the illegal construction that is going on, but to replant the trees. So it's possible to do something, and with this kind of media coverage, then maybe scare one or the other to be a little bit more careful, to just utilize their power and do what they want. So I believe in the power of the people. The problem is we do not believe in our power. that we have.
Sorry, a lot is said about the people who are buying in, right? There's a lot about Delhi buying a villa for 6 crores, having a swimming pool, and therefore no water shortage. What about the people who are selling it? You can't buy until something is sold, right? No one's grabbing that.
You need to read this. She's covered that.
But
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that is a
Yeah.
problem for the Goans themselves also. I think human nature comes in. There might be personal reasons that people sell. They might have children they want to send abroad for a better life. So we have our selfish personal reasons, but it's very much and more now in debate than when I wrote the book 10 years ago, and I said exactly the same thing to my Goan villagers with whom I discussed. There was a great offense taken. Now it is discussed among the villagers themselves. How can we possibly stop that? Yeah, so it's true, of course. It's the land is sold by someone, and I have the feeling that the south of Goa will not go the same way than the north because it's kind of the development is happening now. The north, the destruction has already been done. People are observing it very carefully. So I would be surprised if it would be the same onslaught in the next 10 to 15 years than in the north.
So I think the phrase that Katharina you may be looking for was money laundering.
Money what?
Money laundering.
Yeah.
I think what's happening in Goa in most recent times that this has become the recipient of money laundering that is happening with all the new wealth that's being generated, and say 70% of people, the elite, want to have a Goa villa. So money laundering is the
Just
connection.
interrupt. Can
which is
you
very
say a
long.
question that you have?
No, I'm saying that if you're talking about the
Yeah, we can
complexity.
leave that at towards the end. The last 15 minutes we
No,
have.
let us open it up. Let us open it up. Okay. Yeah.
No, I'm saying that it's insidious because there's money laundering happening, which is what connects
Yeah.
all the people who are in this racket.
Yeah.
And that's very, very strong.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, it's not just that you fight a very corrupt political system. It's also that you have the economy, whether it's the Adani Group, whether it is other, steel companies and so on, with tremendous powers. Yeah, so it's actually a fight in that sense that cannot be lost. But it's a question also, how do you turn it around? That Goa is a small state and everyone knows everyone makes it a very corrupt state, but also a very dependent state on votes. So again, we are back at people power. And there are, of course, many groups who say nothing has worked, and it's true. This is a worldwide, thought process right now on what can be done if policy making fails, if protests on the road fails, if nothing really brings change. And here I'd like to bring in the extinction rebellions. Have you heard about them? Okay, it's a global movement, and I'm sure that some of the activists here in Goa are very well aware also of their intentions and so on. Mainly young people who are fed up with what's happening with the climate crisis and the non-action of politics, and they're non-violent. They are doing all kinds of actions, but non-violent. For example, in the West, they really catch the attention of the elite because they go into the museums and throw tomato soup on the glass, not on the painting, on the glass that kind of safeguards the painting. So it is a kind of violence, but it's also you need to catch attention. They're not destroying the painting. So, but let's not get into that because that goes away. What I would like to, I just noted down something that I would love to read out to you, if I find it. So they kind of claim on their webpage traditional strategies like petitioning, lobbying, voting, protest have not worked due to the rooted interests of political and economic forces. What you are also mentioning with the money laundering and so on. Our approach means Extinction Rebellion is therefore one of nonviolent, disruptive, civil disobedience. Rebellion to bring about change, since all other means have failed. I'm reminded of the Gandhian movement, the salt marches, and so on. So I find it very interesting that there's a global networking right now happening of young people, and I really believe that this is our only chance, because we do not have the means to fight this kind of level of money power. And money laundering is a big thing. Casinos. I mean, why are casinos so big in Goa? Yeah, so I don't know, maybe some other comments or ideas from the audience could bring this discussion a little bit more alive.
I have, my impression is that Goa is following the West. They want to, it becomes very westernized. In my eyes, it becomes very westernized. Of course, everybody wants luxury or whatever. I remember the time also that there were only bikes. There were some cars, there were some taxis. But now I see all the luxury which the West had came to India, to Goa. And of course everybody wants that. I'm not saying people shouldn't have it, but I see then also the roads and the destruction of nature actually, because all these houses, new hotels, they need also roads and also those new cars. I mean, I think that Goa should follow its own way, this nature, that the land should be more, how do you say that, valuable than money, that money couldn't buy.
Everyone would agree
That's
with you.
maybe
Also in the village.
idealistic.
I mean, the villagers I talk to, they're all very frustrated because they have no power even to buy their own land now. So it is the builders. It's what this gentleman was saying. It is the money that comes from outside that makes it
Yes,
impossible.
but it's also the greed of yourself. If you have land and you're local, and you hear that it goes crores and crores and crores. I heard a story not so, I think a month ago. I forgot already where it was with a view on the river, and it will be sold for many crores. Then I think this local, we talk nicely to each other. He's in finances, I talked with, and he said, I can imagine that he has land. He has a house. I know he has a house, and he has a land from the ancestors somewhere else. And I think they also see the money going up, you know? The feeling inside, it's like a seduction. It's very spiritual also, I think, to realize, not always point the finger to the buyer then, but also to your own greed.
Totally.
And to become westernized, if you see what's happening in the West now.
Yeah, that's true.
It's
Yeah.
connected here, because I hear also Goa, smart city, smart city.
Yeah,
You know,
we just
what is
move
the reality?
over to the next. In her book, she's written that most visitors and settlers are not aware of the day-to-day life of the common man in Goa, their customs and rituals, the things that engage and interest them. The plurality of voices and diversity of lifestyles will remain a blank spot. So we come to the next question to Catherine. Could you give us an idea of the different kinds of Goans that we have in our state?
Yeah, I think that would partly answer your question
That's why
also.
we
I
get
mean, there are, it's of course difficult to, just say these people, but let's just summarize the largest groups. They're the Goan villagers who, they are the tribal communities, the only actual Goans of Goa, because Goa has always been a large melting pot. You have the villagers as one group. You have seniors moving from cities like Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi. They live mainly in gated communities and keep to themselves to have a peaceful life. You have the youngsters who are coming. It was easier 10 years ago. You could rent places which were affordable. All that becomes very difficult because Airbnb, for example, just churns in much more money. So housing is a huge issue. Where do young people live when they come here? But you have the young people coming in looking for alternate lifestyles. They find, they have their own kind of companies that are coming up, sustainable things like two of my friends who are here have a paper and packaging startup looking into sustainable packaging. And there's so many others who are doing amazing work. There's Gabriela de Cruz who's working with seaweed. There are hundreds of young people with the right ideas. This is one group. There are Goans as well as outsiders who are coming from other states of India. Then you have, of course, the normal tourists who are just coming. They could go to the Dominican Republic or to Thailand or to India. They don't care. They just want the beach and some food and some beer. That's one group that is kind of transitional. And you have what the Goans in my village call the new colonizers. No offense if anyone is from Delhi here, but that's what the Delhiites are called, who come by with their huge money pockets that they have, and don't care at all of the social fabric of the villages. There are large walls around their big villas. They don't care about the garbage. They don't care about the water. This is, of course, all assumptions. There are lots of people who do care, but in general, this is a kind of group that comes for their own reasons, to have fun, to have nature. They escape the cities for maybe a holiday, maybe to live here, but what they actually create is a recreation of their own, of the stuff that they have left. They want the nightclubs, they want the luxuries that destroy the nature around them. They want their own swimming pool, and so on. I also have a pool. So it is a problem. So that group is by the villagers often called just the new colonizers. And I don't know if you remember that advertisement that was recently a huge scandal here in Goa by one of the builders. The rulers of Delhi, correct me if I get it wrong, the rulers of Delhi are now conquering Goa. It says it all. It was meant maybe as a joke, but this is exactly how the Delhiites, many of them, the ones who invest here, feel, and how they're perceived. Goans often feel as secondary citizens in their own country by a certain kind of arrogance of how they are treated. Like there were, and this is serious. I mean, there were Delhi people who felt disturbed by the Goans on this road in Para, this coconut road, which starred in some movies, and more or less every second visitor wants to have a little picture on that kind of coconut paddy field road. They felt disturbed by the villagers using that road, and seriously suggested why not building a separate road for the villagers. So that is the state of thinking. And that is, I think, the most destructive group for the infrastructure, the social fabric that the villagers feel gets destroyed. It's very difficult to
So
tackle.
yes, we have different identities. We have Goans. We have Goans who went out and came back to stay. We have people who settled here for 50 years. People who have recently moved in. People who consider that India is a different country or that Goa is a different country. So yes, we have different identities in Goa. But in this book, she has covered the different gods that we have. We have a very peculiar situation here where Goa had been ruled by different kings from different places, but was also exposed to a lot of trade from across the seas. And therefore, it has always been cosmopolitan, and she has brought out the history of the state very well in a language that I could understand. I'm not a history student. One of the things you talked about, which is, I'm just going a bit off track, you talked about sardines being used as fertilizer in coconut trees and the smell they might have emitted. Well, I've experienced this as a child, and the smell is quite
Fish
good.
leftovers.
The smell is good. Not leftovers, not leftovers. The sardines were bought and put as fertilizer for coconut trees. They were not leftovers, but they didn't smell too bad. Smelled quite nice actually. Reminds me of
Nostalgia of
fish.
your childhood.
Yes, and also dry cow dung smells quite nice. It smells quite fresh. Doesn't smell bad at all. That's an aside.
Yeah, that's so interesting how our childhood memories, for example, I love to smell cow dung because my aunt lived in a village where there were many cows and we were playing on so for me that is the sardines
Yes.
of the coconut trees for you.
They didn't really rot, they didn't putrefy because of the sun. They dehydrated and the smell wasn't too bad, I must say. Okay. Now I have a question for you that's not connected to the book, but a thought comes to mind. The Portuguese ruled over us for more than 4.5 centuries. The British had ruled over India for half that time. And yet after liberation, we seem to have lost the Portuguese language. And English has come in to stay. How and why do you think that happened?
Let me tell you an anecdote that just comes to mind, and that must have been maybe 10, maybe 15 years ago, in a Mumbai slum. Suddenly there was the invention of a new goddess, and the goddess was called English. She had a book in one hand, and so on. And it was a Dalit community, who invented the goddess and built her temple. Why? Because the understanding of education as the only means to escape your destiny as a Dalit. So in that sense, I would see why English is also more important than, let's say, Portuguese today, because it's the language of education. And I find it yet interesting to see. I don't know if that is true. The Goans would have to respond to that. But I've heard that there's much more interest now with the new generation of Goans to learn Portuguese again and to dive back into their old culture. There was a gap with my generation. It was also kind of revolt against the parents of why should we speak Portuguese and so on. But the newer generation, the younger generation seems to have a new interest in it. And when I visited the public library in Panjim many years back, there were many classical books in Portuguese still there to be, that one could lend and read.